Hello and happy Monday, LinkedIn fam. I'm super excited about today's session because it's all about a tactic and a strategy and just an approach that I have to LinkedIn. And I've been thinking a lot about it lately, which is how do you leverage communities and groups to grow your LinkedIn network? If you're not active in any types of communities yet, you are actually missing out on the easiest, I think, and most effective way to connect with people on LinkedIn. Of course, that's my personal opinion. And hopefully, I can convince you by the end of this to actually test out groups for yourself. I feel like it is much more simple to do this approach than it is to just cold outreach people and LinkedIn search people. So don't worry, we're going to break it all down today in a few minutes. So before we dive in, how was your weekend? I set an intention this weekend. Usually I'm trying to do a million and one things. And this weekend I wanted to be less productive and I wanted to actually build in more peace and serenity into my weekend. And I felt like I did okay in some areas, other areas, room for improvement. But I felt like it was really beautiful to be able to actually spend a little bit more time doing some meditation, some extra family time, exercise. I even squeezed in a luxurious sauna session. I really like to get my sweat on. So it was a good weekend, and I hope yours was too. I also took some time to do what we're talking about today, which is to recharge by engaging in a few of my favorite groups. And I actually love hopping into the comments to get into back and forth discussions. It's such a great way to build relationships without that pressure of one to one outreach. So on the weekends, it's kind of fun. Like hop into your communities, hop into your groups, get a little bit more active. We have a little bit more brain space available. So, another fun weekend activity that I highly recommend. Now it is time for Mondays with Mindy. It's a weekly show at 12 p.m. Pacific. I get that right. No, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Make sure I get them not backwards, where I talk about all things LinkedIn, from optimizing your profile to building connections and just about everything in between. Today's topic is how to grow your LinkedIn network and influence through groups and communities. And these groups do not have to be LinkedIn only groups. So some people have asked, hey, what do you think about LinkedIn groups? LinkedIn groups, some of them are good, some of them are not. But today's topic is not just about LinkedIn only groups. So don't tune out. If you're like Mindy, LinkedIn groups are dead. That's not exactly what we're talking about today. So, as always, if you're watching live or catching the replay, be sure to like this post so I know you're here with me, and drop any questions you have in the comments. I like to answer them after the show and get into back and forth discussions because that's fun for me. And I will either answer them below, or I may even turn the question or comment into a future episode of Mondays with Mindy. So, all right, let's get into it. So, LinkedIn isn't just about nitty gritty researching, like looking for your ideal prospects based on like this very structured LinkedIn search, and then reaching out cold with a really smart and clever connection request. Yes, you can go about it that way. I've done it that way for a lot of clients, and the results are hit or miss. You really have to be clever about that connection request if you're going to reach out cold and you don't have a connection point. So, the goal with LinkedIn is always to have a connection point if possible, not just you're my target prospect, I want to connect with you. You need a better reason if you want it to be more effective, if you also want it to feel good, because I think too many of us were turned off by LinkedIn because it doesn't feel good. We feel like we're pitching people, or we're trying too hard, or we have this sequence that we have to test, versus just using LinkedIn as an extension of our professional self. It's like, oh, this is just, I'm in a group with you and I should get connected to you on LinkedIn. That seems like a natural progression of things, right? So it's all about tapping into communities. At least for me, this is the approach I personally like the best, that you're already a member of, and bringing those connections to LinkedIn. So, whether you're part of a Slack group, a Reddit forum, a Facebook group, industry association, even a local meetup, these are all places where you are naturally building relationships, you're getting into conversations, you're sharing your expertise, and you're making authentic connections. They don't have to be in person connections. In person connections, definitely much stronger, but a lot of us are a part of a number of online groups or spaces where people gather, and we're getting into dialogue. Like, we're having these great insights, we're brainstorming, and you can actually use all of that work and all of that energy and bring it over to LinkedIn and get connected with people on LinkedIn. And you'd be surprised how many people are excited to connect with you on a different channel. So I think sometimes we think in terms of you have to stick to the channel you're on, wherever that group is happening. But if it's a professional group, you can actually take that to LinkedIn as well. So, this is a way that you can actually use all that energy and build your LinkedIn network with all the energy that you're putting into your group interactions. So, I really like to use this approach, as I've said already a number of times. And it's really about solidifying your relationships. Again, this is related to professional relationships, doesn't work so well if you're talking about, I'm trying to think of a good topic that's completely not professional related. But if you're into like a hobby, okay, for surfing, for example, if I'm in a surfing group, I'm not going to go look up people that are in the surfing group and get connected with them on LinkedIn. I love surfing, but there's no professional reason for me to connect with them on LinkedIn. Okay, so this works for professional groups only. So let me share a quick story about my colleague Jen. She works in sales development for an event technology startup. So they have event tech that they use to help manage events. It makes things a lot easier. So she wanted to break into the industry and really be seen as a thought leader. Yes, she has been in the event management space, but not at the level and not with the people that she was really, really targeting and the people who are decision makers who actually would want to hear about this event tech. So what she decided to do was like, okay, all right, I could cold connect with them. We had this beautiful, nice list. It's like, all right, we've got this list of people and influencers. We should be tracking them on LinkedIn. We should look at their posts. That's great. That's a great LinkedIn approach. But she wanted to take it a step further. So she said, hey, we actually can get into these Slack communities. There's like a handful of Slack communities where a lot of activity is happening. I'm a member of some of them. I need to join a couple more. Instead of just cold connecting with these people one on one through the LinkedIn approach, the standard stuff, like what we talked about last week, which is a good approach, she wanted to like warm them up a little bit more and interact with them elsewhere before taking that LinkedIn approach. Very, very smart. It is definitely a slower approach, but it tends to work out pretty well in the end if you aren't in a rush to get connected or in a rush to pitch and sell. So she said, okay, let me get into these groups. Let me listen. Let me find out what's happening in these groups, make sure the people I think are in the groups are actually in these communities. And then she began engaging in conversations, sharing her insights, contributing to discussions. And within a few weeks, it didn't take very long, she had built some meaningful online relationships. I mean, not deep relationships, but just her name was recognized. She was seen as a contributor to the group. So when she later decided, hey, okay, some of these people I want to connect with on LinkedIn, it was a natural next step in the relationship. It wasn't a cold reach out. They recognized her name. Oh, yeah, we were hanging out in the group. So eventually, one of these new connections actually led to her getting multiple booked demo calls with people they knew who would be interested in that event tech tool. Okay. So, very simple approach. Like, let's find the communities. Where are people talking? Where are they hanging out for this group? It was on Slack. Let's actually get into those groups, find out what people are talking about, and then interact with them there and then hop over to LinkedIn and get connected. Okay. So, again, we're thinking multi touch approach. This works so well if you are an account based marketer, account based sales, and you're really trying to break into certain accounts. So, it doesn't really, I would say it's industry agnostic. A lot of groups, I would say just about every industry has groups or communities somewhere online where you can actually get into the groups, hear what people are talking about, engage in those discussions, and actually listen and share your ideas. Sometimes you got to do a lot more listening at the beginning and you can't jump in until you feel confident, and that's okay too. So, this is the power of communities outside of LinkedIn. So, yes, there are some groups inside LinkedIn, but you can do this outside of LinkedIn. And it's crucial to bring those relationships into LinkedIn to keep that conversation going. All right. So, again, thinking multi touch approach. So, for those of you who don't know me, you're like, Mindy, what is all this stuff about groups? Okay. Who are you? So, my name is Mindy Ramsey, and I help professionals who feel like they're the best kept secret in their industries to become visible experts using LinkedIn as the main platform. So, today we're going to talk about how to leverage these external communities and strategically connect with people on LinkedIn to expand your network and unlock new opportunities. Again, slow and steady wins the race here. So if you're ready to tap into your communities to grow your LinkedIn presence, again, hit that like button, hit that reaction, and let's dive in a little bit deeper. So here's the thing. You don't need to rely solely on LinkedIn groups to grow your network. All right. I have been asked a lot of times about what I think of LinkedIn groups. It's a question I've gotten for like 10 years. Okay. So some LinkedIn groups are better than others. And keep that in mind when you are determining which communities to actively participate in. So if you're like, Mindy, I want to try this strategy with LinkedIn groups, you can do that. The thing is, what I've noticed with a lot of LinkedIn groups I'm a part of, and also with a number of clients I've worked with, and especially in recent times, a lot of those groups aren't really that active. It's a lot of broadcasting where people are just trying to push out content and there's not too much discussion actually happening in the group. So if you want to use a strategy I'm talking about today in a LinkedIn group, first hop into the group and see if it's one of these broadcaster groups or if people are actually having a lot of conversation. You will notice that if it's probably more in line with like a private group, because there are private groups and public groups, the private groups tend, not always, they tend to be a little bit more curated. So people are actually, community managers are actually on the back end of this, paying attention and trying to foster conversations. Public groups, a lot of times, are a little bit more broadcasty, especially if the group admins and managers are not paying attention to the content coming into the group. So you can immediately tell once you're inside the group, you're going to have to join the group and then be able to tell if this LinkedIn group is a good conversational group or if it's a little bit more on the broadcast end of the spectrum. So just a tip about LinkedIn groups. All right, so communities exist everywhere. So, like I said, we have Slack channels, we have Discord servers, we got Facebook groups, Reddit forums, even Zoom sessions where people get together and hop on Zoom and talk to each other, and in person events. All right, so these are all places that are rich with potential connections. But what most people miss is the opportunity to connect with these same people on LinkedIn. And that's where those relationships can continue to grow professionally. It's also a really simple way for those of us who are a little bit shy or a little bit hesitant to send out cold connection invitations to a target list. If you actually look for communities where your target prospects and your audience already are getting together and you join that community and then you interact with those people in that community and then hop into LinkedIn to connect with them, that is a much more seamless path for many of us, a lot less friction. It doesn't feel as scary. We've already kind of gotten our feet wet. We already know what they want to talk about. A lot of times you can even see the different types of posts and content they have posted in the group. So you can be very targeted and specific with your outreach and with your conversations. Okay. So it helps those of us who need a little bit more prep, who are maybe not the salesy types, to actually get into these conversations and get connected on LinkedIn in a natural way. So you're not relying on that cold outreach. You connect with people you've already engaged with somewhere else. The key really is here, though, is not to treat it like a prospect list. Like you don't want to just export a list of all the group members and just start messaging them unless you're ready to engage, unless you have built up a little bit of rapport inside the group, unless you know what the group is all about, or you can get into a back and forth with these connections. Otherwise, it's going to look really spammy. So people misuse this approach. Don't misuse the approach. Show up in the communities as yourself, show up regularly, and then you are earning the right to actually reach out to people. Okay. So this is a really neat way to grow your network, as I've said. So once you've joined a community, whether it's professional group on Slack, on LinkedIn, subreddit, meetup group, a Zoom session, effective engagement can really help you maximize your time and make those meaningful connections. So I'm going to talk about 3 steps that you need to take to ensure that your efforts in these groups actually lead to that value and business opportunities and that good word of mouth. Because it's, to me, interacting in groups and being a good group member is first and foremost the utmost priority. If I get connected with them on LinkedIn, great. That's a great side effect. And I'm going to attempt to connect with them on LinkedIn if it makes sense. But what matters to me is supporting the objectives of that group and really showing up as the best version of myself professionally. So do keep that in mind because, again, don't misuse this approach. Don't just go into communities trying to prospect. You will show your true colors, and that's not a good look, first of all. Second of all, you're not being a good human and not contributing to the group in a way that the person that created that group wants to hold that safe space for people. So make sure your groups remain a safe space for other members too. Okay. My caveat before I share the strategy. Okay. So, first of all, you want to observe the group dynamics. Very important that you listen, listen, listen. So before diving into the conversation, take some time to listen and understand what's going on in the group. Okay. There are often a lot of side conversations, there are a lot of nuance. If you're joining groups that are built around, somebody's product or program or somebody's approach or a specific strategy, then you really want to understand what that strategy is before you start jumping in and talking. Okay, some groups are a little bit more general, but I find the ones that are a little bit more tailored and specific are actually better because you can speak the language. So if there's some type of lingo that is inherent to the group, you're going to do better than joining a generic group. So for example, I'm in social media. All right, I can join a B2B social media group. Great. All right, so we're talking about B2B social media, but in all of the different ways, right? Now, there are certain programs, groups, memberships that are related to social media. For example, Jasmine Star. She has a very specific way with Social Curator where she actually pulls together social media for her group members. I've been a part of Social Curator, and there is a very specific language that people speak inside that group. People in the know, and you use certain terms that you wouldn't use in a generic social media group. Social Curator is probably going to be a better fit for me if I'm trying to find people in that space because we are speaking the same language. It feels a little bit more like a group and that we're a part of something than just, people sharing generic B2B social media stuff. Okay, so it's really important that you listen, that you can speak the language, and think about what topics resonate with that community. You don't want to be that person that is like controversial inside the group. You want to be more of a team player. So if you tend towards a little bit more controversial, I would just caution you to be thoughtful about taking that kind of type of stance, especially if you're going to go into the group and want to connect with people. Take a bit more of a thoughtful, strategic team player approach. Think about what the members inside of this group prioritize, what types of discussions are most active. Pay attention to those because those are going to be like your talking points. These are the things that you want to learn about the people inside this group. Also, pay attention to who the key contributors are. Who are the community managers? Who are the people on the team? Who are the admins and the moderators? Who are the super contributors? These are the kinds of things that people that you want to pay attention to. Also, the types of questions that are asked, the tone of the interaction. Some groups, they like to go in there and they challenge each other a lot, and that's encouraged. Other groups are like, yay, 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 we're all cheerleaders on the same team. So really think about, okay, what is the vibe inside of this group? Because that will also help you when you start connecting with people on LinkedIn to use that similar type of vibe in your connection invitation. Okay. So are people looking for deep insights? Are they like, give me some practical tips? Are people in there trying to network? Obviously, this period of observation helps you really understand where and how you can contribute without coming across as intrusive or self-promotional. I've seen a lot of people make the mistake of going in there and it's obvious that they're trying to promote. For example, I'm in a lot of course creator groups. All right, I'm confessing here. So there are some course creator groups that I'm a part of, and I think they are really, really helpful when people are asking questions, when people are like, can you give me feedback? I'm trying this type of tech, it's not working. Where do you find, assets? Which tools do you use? And people are sometimes trying to throw their links to their affiliate links in there. They're also trying to shout out their own programs. They're like, oh, you should just talk to me. And it's obvious that they're trying to oversell their products or services. You want to be super thoughtful that you are not seen as that type of group member, and don't even be borderline that type of group member, because that is a red flag for a lot of people and people are going to be hesitant to trust you. So yes, you're going to have expertise and advice. People will naturally assume that you're a consultant, that you're, at least in these course creator groups, that you're an expert in your field. That's why you're chiming in. So they're going to assume that you don't have to shout it at them. If they want to know more, if they like what you have to say, they're going to ask you questions. So observe, 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 observe. I can't even say that word. And listen, listen, listen. Okay. Number 2, engage with the group posts consistently. Don't go in there one week and comment on a bunch of things, and then the next week you just disappear because now you have been active inside this group, and now you're done. You're going to go prospect these people on LinkedIn. So once you feel comfortable with the group's dynamics, you do want to participate, but don't engage just for the sake of engaging. Actually focus on adding value. So if you see a conversation that aligns with your expertise, share your thoughts, chime in. Again, keep in mind the vibe of the group. Answer questions, offer advice, share relevant articles and resources if that's allowed inside the group that others might find useful. Raise your hand and say, hey, I'm willing to be, feel free to DM me if you want more details. So don't hesitate to ask insightful questions yourself. The group is there for each other. They're all there to solve problems. And by you participating, asking questions, not just hopping in the comments, but put your own post in there as long as they're not self-promotional. This can actually spark further dialogue and demonstrate that you are actually interested in learning from others as well. You're not just the expert sitting on your high horse. You are here to contribute and be a good group member, and you want to learn. So the key is to be consistent and authentic. So what does consistency mean? I would recommend interacting, especially if this is a group that you are like, Mindy, this is full of people who would be a great fit for my LinkedIn network, then you should probably be interacting in there if it's an active group at least a few times per week. Some groups you may want to interact and pop in every weekday and just contribute or pay attention or hit like. These are things that are very easy to do, but also will build your visibility and your comfortability with the people inside that group. So the key, again, consistent, authentic. Be yourself, not self-promotional. Be a good group member. And the people will start recognizing you as someone who contributes meaningfully, not just promoting yourself or your business. And you will notice the people and the group members who show up all the time with insights, who take time to write thoughtful comments. A lot of the groups I'm in, people will the thoughtful group members will share like a paragraph or two of very insightful, very specific advice and feedback to people asking questions. You can also tag other people. So if you know of other experts inside that group who would actually be able to answer that question, you can tag them inside those groups. This is a really good way to show that, hey, I'm here to contribute. I care about this group. I'm a team player and I want to connect with all of you. Okay. So first, we're listening, we're observing, we are paying attention before we start talking. Then we are going to start engaging and talking and sharing our thoughts and insights. And then we get to the LinkedIn connection part. So for example, let's say you're in a marketing focused Slack channel and someone asks about strategies for launching a product on LinkedIn. All right. So for me, I'm like, oh, all right, I've done a good number of launches myself, and I work on LinkedIn. So I've had experience with that. So I could jump in with my approach or lessons learned, but what I probably wouldn't do is like, hey, go subscribe to my newsletter. Here's my freebie. Here's my link. I would probably be very hesitant to hand out anything that seems self-promotional, but I would share some thoughts and like, if we go back and forth in the comments, great. And if people really need more information, they're going to say, hey, Mindy, can I DM you? Okay, that's a natural way to interact in a group. So even if my contribution is pretty brief, people will remember. They'll remember the value you provide. And again, they may start tagging you inside of the group, which is also good because it starts, building you inside the group as an expert. You can help others. Okay. All right, so we have observed, we have engaged, we know how to engage, we've shared some, talked through some examples here. Now we're going to connect on LinkedIn. So now that we have done all that prep work with our groups and had fun, the key is also to have fun with all of this. Hopping into groups should not be a chore. It should be related to having fun and interacting with other professionals excited about the same things you're excited about. So I do want to highlight that as well. This is not all like grindy work. That's why I feel this strategy is so much fun and enjoyable because it's not like working through a prospect list. You're like, I have this list of 100 influencers I want to connect with. I've got to pitch them something. I've got to look at their content. Yeah, but this interacting in groups is so natural and fun that I think it tops the other strategy. So just my 2 cents. All right. So connecting on LinkedIn. After you have engaged with members and built some rapport, take the relationship further by sending them a LinkedIn connection request. Okay. It doesn't have to be with people that you have only directly interacted with on LinkedIn, although I feel like that is the most powerful. But there are some group members who are active and looking, some people call them lurkers, which I don't really like the term, but people who are watching what's happening in the group, but maybe not actively engaging, but they are a member and they're paying attention. You can still reach out to those people. It doesn't have to be the super chatty people in the group. So just when you are sending a connection request, make sure to reference if you've had an interaction in the community with them. Keep it personal, keep it genuine. If you haven't had an interaction, but you know that they're a member of the group, you could just reference, hey, I saw you're also in the group. These are things that you can reference that don't feel inauthentic. So you don't want to say, I interacted with you in the group, and the person's like, I haven't ever posted in that group, so they're going to see right through your facade. So don't make things up that are not true. Make sure you mention the connection point, but keep it authentic. So here's an example. Hi, Jane. I enjoyed our conversation in Digital Course Academy about how to actually launch your course using Kajabi. I think the point you made about how easy Kajabi is to use was very helpful for me because I am new to Kajabi and trying to learn. It's a little bit wordy, but I'd love to connect here on LinkedIn. So you can see that I'm referencing the group, I'm referencing the topic, I'm referencing the point that this person made. I'm also sharing my perspective and why that matters to me. And then I'd love to connect. That takes work to put together. Okay, so this type of connection invitation works for people who are chatty in the group and you have actually interacted with them. If the person is not so chatty in the group and they're one of those lurkers, you're going to just say something along the lines that you're both in the group and that you're excited to be learning about Digital Course Academy together and what's the topic of the course that they want to launch. So you're asking a question to get them into conversation, which is also another way to engage people on LinkedIn. So two different approaches, talk about an interaction you've had, or the other approach is ask a question. So ask a question that gets them into a back and forth. So this will give you context. It also helps the person receiving the connection invitation to recall, oh yeah, we did interact in the group, or I've seen you in the group. I don't know exactly where and how, but yeah, your name looks familiar. And it makes the connection feel natural and familiar rather than a cold request where people feel like you're going to pitch them. Again, use the follow-up message. So whatever happens after that connection invitation, once they accept, whatever message you send as a response to that, use it as an opportunity to expand on that shared interest, the focus of the group, what you're both excited about. For instance, mention a relevant article or resource. If you're going through a course or program together, mention what week you're in or which module you find interesting or which topic is challenging for you, or ask a thoughtful question. If you know that they're an expert in something based on their LinkedIn profile or their interactions in a group, mention that because it shows that you're interested in building a real connection, that you value their expertise as a fellow professional, and you're not just trying to expand your network for the sake of numbers. Okay. The worst thing you can do is follow up with a pitch. Do not follow up with a pitch. Do not tell them all about yourself. Do not say, sign up for my webinar. Do not give them your Calendly link to hop on a call with you. This is a place for genuine interaction. If it goes back and forth, great. You've made a new LinkedIn buddy that you're also going to see in the group that you're a part of. That's fabulous. And things will naturally progress from there. If you're trying to use this strategy as a quick way to boost sales for your next course program or to book sales calls immediately, this strategy is probably not the best one for you. So just kind of keep that in mind. This is for those of you who really want to build an authentic, engaged LinkedIn network. Again, I talk about this all the time, quality over quantity. So focus on real connections. And you don't have to be active in every single community or group. Don't look at this and go, oh, I'm a member of like 12 groups. I've got to be active in all of them all at once. Focus on one group and try this out with 20 people. That's what I recommend as a starting point. Pick 20 people inside the group. I would pick people who are pretty active in the group and try this strategy after you have, again, observed, you've listened, you've engaged, and then you're going to write a very thoughtful connection invitation. So then you can expand it to a handful of communities. If you're like, oh, this is something ongoing I'd like to keep doing, then maybe you have, 3 to 5 active communities that you like to reach out to people and get connected to new members in. This is a very sustainable way to build a LinkedIn network that feels good in the process. All right. So definitely focus on quality over quantity and engage meaningfully, build stronger relationships. If you don't have time to do follow ups in your LinkedIn DMs, don't send a ton of connection invitations. Focus on sending fewer because this type of approach will often lead to a very active messaging in LinkedIn. So people will tend to go back and forth with you in LinkedIn if your strategy is working. So do prepare yourself for that. Don't send hundreds of these within the span of, a week. Don't send all 250 connection invitations that you can send with a premium account all at once because you may get inundated in your DMs. Okay. So just focus on the quality. So by being selective, you can also dedicate time to truly understanding that group, that community, and continuing to show up and offer that value and form deeper connections. This will lead to natural business development opportunities and growth, but you have to be willing to put in the time for the long haul. Okay, so keep that in mind. When you do send these LinkedIn connection requests, they also won't feel like cold outreach, so you'll feel better on the inside, which I really like. And I mentioned that a few times. Have you noticed? And instead, you're building on a foundation of shared experiences and conversations, which makes it easier to establish that trust. We all know about the know, like, and trust factor. That's hard to establish on LinkedIn, but this approach really helps you build that know, like, and trust factor where people are getting into the DMs and seeing that you're not pitching them, that you truly do just want to be, professional buddies or be in each other's professional networks and support each other. So real growth happens when your connections already see you as someone they know and respect, and you are continuing to build that when you are interacting in the group after you get connected on LinkedIn as well. So this is a win-win. This is a win for everyone. And I highly, highly recommend those of you who want to build a great LinkedIn network with people you actually want to be connected to try this approach and tell me how it goes. So again, let's recap. Join external communities outside LinkedIn or inside LinkedIn if you want that align with your goals, wherever you're headed next in your career, in your business, the people you want to surround yourself with. Then engage genuinely, offer value in those spaces, then bring those relationships back to LinkedIn by sending personalized connection requests. So by building these relationships in your communities inside or outside LinkedIn and then connecting with those people, you're creating a powerful network and it's built on trust and real engagement and it feels good on the inside, which will also make you want to do it. So I'd love to hear from you. What communities have helped you grow your network? Do you have any great communities that you're like, oh, Mindy, these ones are fantastic. We're having great conversations. Feel free to shout them out below because I love coming across great communities and groups of people sharing ideas and insights that aren't just, either broadcasting or full of spam. Like, let's have connection with each other and share ideas. So drop your thoughts in the comments below. All right. So do you want more tips on building a strong LinkedIn presence? Go hit up my website. Here's my little pitchy pitch, mindyrosser.com/reboot, LinkedIn reboot here. Let me put it on the screen so you can see it. If you want to check out my guide on optimizing your LinkedIn profile, get on my list, all that good stuff. If you like LinkedIn tips, you can check that out. And thanks for joining me today. Now go out there and start connecting, hop into a new group, get active in a group that you're already a member of, and let me know how it goes. All right, I will see you all next week on Mondays with Mindy, and we're going to talk about LinkedIn searches. So for those of you who are like, groups, not really my thing, but I really want to figure out how to do LinkedIn searches really well. Next week, you're going to love the topic we're talking about because we're going to get into a little bit of strategy when it comes to LinkedIn searches. All right. So I will see you all next week. Have a good one.